This is Pod Strangely Warmed, a place where we tell the good Methodist story, where we have conversations that invite followers of Jesus to seek after that loving, just, and free world that God imagines for us all, and have a little fun along the way. Hey, and welcome to Pod Strangely Warm. We are laughing because we're having fun on Election Day. Hard to imagine that is possible, and yet we are here having a great time in the studio, in part because of the spirit that has filled this place and the two amazing humans who are joining me here today. Reverend Joe Stobaugh is the senior pastor at University Park United Methodist Church, and Reverend Marilyn Jones is the senior pastor at First Methodist in Stephenville. Thank you both for being here, and thank you both for the laughter and the spirit of joy that kind of filled our prep time today. We are here because Election Day is today.
And it took forever to get here.
Yeah, seriously.
And we're actually here in part to try to counteract some of that election day is coming, doom, gloom sense of things. And to bear witness to a spirit that is being lived out in your communities. And I know in United Methodist communities across not only the Horizon Texas Conference, but across the nation in this time. A time that points us to kindness and to hope, when few others seem to in the midst of it. But before we go there, Joe, will you spend a few seconds, help us get to know you and the context in which you serve?
Sure, yes. I was appointed to University Park United Methodist Church, which is in Dallas, Texas, and the Park Cities, right at Preston and Caruth, in July of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. It's like really
God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you. Not the best time to start, but also we made lots of good things out of it. So I've been there for 5 years. Married to Sarah, who is the homebound coordinator for the school district at Highland Park. So for kids who are sick or have long-term reasons to not be in school, she is the liaison between the students, the families, the doctors, the teachers, and the administration. So whenever I feel like I'm kind of overwhelmed in work, I look at her schedule and go like, "You're doing just fine. Just don't worry." So we have two kids, Ellie, which is 8. She's 18, and she's at the University of North Texas, and really involved in the Wesley Foundation, which makes her father so happy.
Shout out Marianne Brown Trigg.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. She and Ginny Bates are amazing, amazing people. And then my son Sam is 16 and is a sophomore at Highland Park High School. And we got a Labradane named Buddy. So it's 90 pounds of joy.
Well, if it's a Labradane and only 90 pounds, I think you're doing good.
Yeah.
We were very fortunate.
It could be much worse.
He was a rescue dog, and actually my wife brought him back the week before the 2019 General Conference, to which I was on the North Texas delegation. I was like, "What are you doing?" And then I quickly realized that was my General Conference therapy dog. So, so
Good plan.
Just look at the dog, and the dog's like, "We're going to be okay, buddy."
Right? Very good.
Yeah.
We all needed a little therapy after 2019.
We did. Yeah, that was tough.
It was tough. And part of what ended up pushing, at least on the Central Texas side, a delegation shift that put Marilyn and I on the delegation for Central Texas for 20 that turned into 22 that turned into
Far too long.
24.
Yeah, so maybe still be happening. We don't even know.
Right. Joe, we got a dog this summer.
You did?
She's a Bernedoodle named Pop-Tart. And I just everybody who we have on who's kind of multi-years into the dog experience, we are self-identified C- pet parents.
Okay.
Which is why we got the Bernedoodle.
Okay.
Right? Smart, but also kind and sort of lazy. And it's a good combo.
Yes.
What have you
Dane is
learned
part of
from the the Labradane that I need to know as a C- pet parent?
Oh no, I think you're doing great. It's the breed is what dictates the experience. I think in some sense, we had two Jack Russell Terriers prior to that. That's just a totally different experience.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah, completely different
It's a lot
experience.
of energy.
A lot of energy, and Buddy the Labradane just wants to be near you and throw the ball. And eat, and that's
perfect.
It's perfect.
Sounds like a good Saturday to me.
It's awesome. I love it. Love it. Yes, I already foreboding joy. It's like, that's going to be a tough day.
Absolutely. Very good. Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
Sure.
Marilyn, give us a little window into who you are and where you serve.
I have been at First United Methodist Church in Stephenville since July 2022. And I served at Couts in Weatherford before that, and at Meadowbrook, now Meadowbrook Poly here on the east side of Fort Worth for 8 years before that. So I keep moving west, which is not a problem.
Amarillo, here you come.
I I go where I'm sent.
Yes.
So, I'm married to my husband Clint, who's also United Methodist clergy. He's on personal leave right now, working at Tarleton State University in Stephenville, and has been there since January. And so we are figuring out what that looks like as a big shift from being a clergy couple. And we have a daughter named Judah, who is 6 and living her best first grade life. And we do not have a dog. We have a fish that we just acquired at the carnival for her school. And his name is Reddy. And so
has Reddy made it into week 2 and week 3?
Oh, yes. We're almost at a month.
Oh, wow.
So we went immediately to the pet store that night, got a little tank and the food. And so he has done remarkably well for first pet.
Reddy is strong-willed.
Very strong.
That goldfish
yes.
normally has like a 36-hour shelf life.
Yeah. I've been surprised. We did have to have the conversation of, fish don't last long, so just be prepared. There were lots of tears.
We may have to have burial at sea, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, I don't want to flush him. Okay, so that's our life, and we're just sort of in this season of transition as a family and figuring out what that looks like. But so far it's been a huge blessing to kind of all be within a couple miles of each other and close by one another. So we're not having to drive too far.
Yeah, very good. You've brought something here on the table that represents you. We ask everybody to bring a self for the shelf, but we kind of got the shelf full today. So what did you bring? And
I brought
what does it mean to you?
The lyrics to one of my favorite songs by one of my favorite bands. I grew up in Kentucky, and the Kentucky is very strong in me. The Appalachia is very strong in me. And this is a song called Home by Sunday Best. And Sunday, not Sunday.
Okay.
There's no A in there. So Sunday Best, and it just talks about growing up in the mountains of eastern Kentucky and have moonshine in your veins. And the song just really gets to me. And so that was what I brought today because it's a big part of who I am, my upbringing, and how that has played into preparing me for ministry down the road and everything. But it's also home. So I haven't quite made Texas home yet. Kentucky's still home.
We claim you, even if you're still working on it.
Thank you.
And when you became Methodist clergy, that moonshine in your veins turned into Welch's Grape
Yes,
Juice, right?
exactly,
Oh,
exactly.
yes, of course. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, very good, very good. Joe, what did you bring along with you that we have marking our shelf today?
Well, I was going to bring an instrument, but then I realized that's not going to, like a musical instrument, not going to fit on the bookshelf. So I brought a paperweight that I have this 90-year-old man delight in collecting paperweights, but this is one that I helped to make, and I thought
cool.
it was, our new conference colors, sort of.
Yeah.
But it's aspirational. I have a long way to go, but I do. One of the things I think is so wonderful about glass is that it lets light through, and that is the kind of person, the kind of ministry I'd like to be. Someone that is able to allow the light and the love and the grace and the justice of God to pour through. But I said it's my sense of humor is really occludes that regularly. So. It's aspirational.
Hey, that's good.
And we
it
need a
lets
little
light
beauty in
through,
life.
and we sometimes get in the way a little bit.
Yeah.
And either way, it works.
Yeah,
okay.
whatever the thickest part of that is probably me. So, but you gotta have hope. Going on to perfection. Yeah.
Well, and I'm just impressed that you made it. That's really amazing.
Let me be clear, I helped make it.
Well, you can claim it. It's all good. The closest I get to blowing glass is Netflix through the Best in Blow show,
right?
which is a really pretty
Great
cool show.
show.
And will blow your mind in terms of how they're able to make
It's incredible.
all of this. Yeah. No, it's
fascinating.
If you picked the
discipline.
color, you did well.
Thank you, I did.
Okay,
Yeah,
see,
thanks.
there you go.
There's some Holy Spirit color in there.
That's
Some,
right. Yeah.
Pentecost fire and
All that good
All
stuff.
that good stuff. Very good. Very good. Thank you both for both being here, for making the drive in. We are representing some geographic breadth in our annual conference today, and I'm thankful for that. You have come to Fort Worth to record with us because Zoom is great, but we have some PTSD from it, from the pandemic when we were only on it all the time. We have heard a little bit about who you are. We've heard a little bit about your churches. But one of the things I want to spend some time on today in this election season when things are coming to the fore is a campaign that's been going on in both of your congregations during this time, as well as several other United Methodist churches across the conference and the connection. Can you tell us, Joe, you've brought signage, which is great. And Marilyn brought swag. I got a t-shirt and stickers and all kinds of good stuff. Joe, will you just begin by giving us an overview of this campaign itself and what are some foundational tenets of it?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think probably like nearly every American who's paying attention to anything, regardless of political affiliation, this has been this election has been something that's been in the future in a foreboding way for many of us. And this summer, I had a chance to go to Belfast to study conflict. And the idea was we worked with this Irish Methodist minister named Gary Mason, and the idea was you look at your own conflict through the lens of the Troubles. And so is when I really came back with this sense of the church being a safe place for people of very different persuasions and affiliations, that's actually really critical work. And then I saw it first through Marcia McPhee's Worship Design Studio. Marcia's like a just wonderful friend. And I thought, all right, if Marcia's down with this will be great. And also, of course, with the Church of Resurrection, kind of leading the way on this. It's, I think, one of the great things that we have is our connection. Yeah. And so why wouldn't we do that? And then looking at the resources, it just felt like it was going to be a really good opportunity for us as at UP, which really prides itself on being a big table kind of church. We've got folks who really believe strongly on all sides of the political spectrum. This would be a great opportunity for us to model that thing that we do well also out into the world. And to be able to connect that, through the yard signs and all that sort of thing. And then we also work with our friends at Thanksgiving Square. This is a thing that they're doing here. Can we still be friends even if we don't vote the same? So we've been pushing that out as well. And we're an early voting place. The first week of early voting, we had 8,000 people come through the church. Wow! And we had basically like a merch stand with T-shirts and stickers and yard signs, and we ran out of stickers in the first week, and sold shirts. And I think there is a hunger for people in the United States to be able to find common ground and to work for the common good. Maybe not as much of a hunger as we would like, but also we got to figure out how to live together. Yeah. And so being able to be a small voice for that seemed really important.
Very good. Marilyn, as you've communicated this at First Stephenville, what is the heart of what you have communicated to your church and why y'all felt convicted to say, yes, we're going to make a point of participating in this campaign for kindness, this call to do unto others?
We are one of the more progressive churches in town. There are 4 of us that call ourselves the Misfits out of, 2,000 churches in Stephenville. When I went to Leadership Institute last year at Church of the Resurrection and heard about this campaign for the first time, I knew we had to do it for where we were, not just for the election, but also because of General Conference was also going to be important for us because of how divided that could have made our church. And as we've communicated it, I hope that I have effectively communicated, and I believe that we have, that this is our call as the people who follow Jesus. Yeah. This is what Jesus has commanded us to do, and that if we want to see any healing of division in our country, it has to start with the church. Yeah. Yeah. And if we don't do it well, nobody else is going to do it well. And it's been very convicting, not just for the church, but for me. Very often when we preach, we're preaching to ourselves as well. And so every week it's this reminder of, well, I can't call these people names. I can't wish ill on them because I'm supposed to be treating them as I want to be treated. Yeah. And so that has permeated through everybody that has sat through worship or has done kindness bingo. I thought these were from Church of the Resurrection Resources, these common ground conversation starter cards. And I thought, nobody's going to want these. This was my last pack of them, and people took them. And my prayer is like, how can we use the golden rule to unite as a community? One of my favorite questions in here is, what's your first memory of democracy, of participating in democracy? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to have that conversation starter that kind of helps us all find the place where we start from, because we agree on a whole lot more than we disagree on. But we're in a very, very red-leaning area, but the church is very diverse in its political affiliation, political beliefs, and people didn't stop coming, which I found it's kind of nice that they actually wanted to hear what the Bible had to say about how we heal division. That's been a real gift to have from the congregation.
Absolutely. It feels like in this time, Paul's words to the church in Rome, right? Don't be conformed to the patterns of this world, but instead be transformed by the renewing of your heart and your mind, right? That is part of what you're trying to do here, right? To not conform to a pattern of division, but instead be transformed, right? To do the hard thing. It's a whole lot easier to go, I'm right, you're wrong, get over it, than it is to say, well, let's come alongside each other and let me hear you out, even if I'm feeling some inner tension as you're sharing a perspective that I'm not 100% certain that I could agree with, but I can honor where you came from in the creating of that. Marilyn, I want to know a little bit about Kindness Bingo. Tell me what you got here.
I invited families to take a bingo card, and I'd found lots of examples. I think they must do this in public schools a lot because there were a lot of teacher sites that had ideas that were family-friendly, kid-friendly to do. And the idea was to do 4 or 5 things in a row and get bingo. And we've had, our first winner was Lily, and Lily is one of our youngest church members. And so she came up to me Sunday very proud that she had won Kindness Bingo.
Shout out to Lily.
Yay,
you are
Lily.
amazing and
She
awesome
is.
and an inspiration to all of us. Good job.
She helped her family a whole lot. But things like saying thank you to first responders, participating in a blood drive, which we held this month. So that was a given that we could have done that. Write a positive review online for a local business.
Okay. Yeah.
Anti-Yelp.
Pick up some trash, just, and it's not all being kind toward one another, but even kindness toward our earth, but donate to a food pantry, hold the door open. So it wasn't all really hard things. There were simple things, but my hope was it would spark some intentionality within all of us to actually think about, am I being kind today? Am I treating this person beside me, across from me, the way that I want to be treated? So it took them a month, but hey, we're good. We're good. I'm just proud of them for doing it. I mean, this is great stuff that she did. Compliment the first person you see today. Ask someone about their day. Clean up a mess that isn't yours. So it was a really great way to get families engaged in trying to work together. Now, a lot of them wanted to compete within their family.
Yeah,
If we got to, I guess.
If you're going to compete in something, let's compete in kindness.
I encourage them not to, but to maybe compete over a space. Who could do that space first, and then as a family they could win.
Yeah, that's great.
I love the invitation inherent in the bingo card to intentionality in the smallest of things, right? I think sometimes our political division and the brokenness in the system, the anxiety it causes, right? Both the doom scrolling on our phone and the foreboding that can sometimes overhang these kind of moments feel too big for us to do anything about, right? But the invitation to intentionality in the smallest of things says, I can't fix the whole system,
Right.
but I can fix how we interact today. I can fix how we interact today, and I can hopefully invite a ripple effect there.
Yes,
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, the energy we put in the world helps in the recreation of the world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be big. In fact, you just got to go with what you got right in front of you. That is empowering, I think. Ask Lily.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
As we think about this coming out on Election Day, this conversation, this campaign toward kindness kind of is built toward this election season. But as you beautifully named, in light of General Conference and other specific like Methodist things, the campaign doesn't stop November 6th.
I hope not.
Right? That impulse remains. This week I reacquainted myself with John Wesley's rules for voting, right? Which I think are kind of inherent behind this campaign, but also we need to hear on a fairly regular basis. One of them super easy, right? Or generally super easy, right? Vote for the person you judge to be most worthy, right? Cool. I think most people can wrap their hearts and heads around that. Joe, I know you're going to do that later today.
That's right. Yes, on my 18-year-old, her first time to vote. So we're going to go as a family and have that powerful experience together. So we're really excited.
Now you got to get your sticker. We talked a lot about stickers today. You got to get your sticker. Got to take the picture.
Yeah, if it's not on Instagram, did you vote?
Did it count? No, I don't know. I don't know. But then the second and the third are the more challenging pieces, not only for us individually, but they're also those pieces that are most radically countercultural, right? Number 2, don't speak evil of the person you voted against, right? To be mindful of our power of our language. And then third, take care in your spirits so that they aren't sharpened against those who voted on the other side. Don't let your spirit be sharpened. Don't let your heart be hardened toward the people who have voted differently, who think differently, who are perceiving the world through a different kind of lens and focus. It's not always easy.
No.
And yet, just last Sunday in our church, we're not officially doing the campaign because I was oblivious apparently and missed out until, like 3 weeks ago. And it's like, we're a little late to get all the swag in and kind of really push it. But in this season, it's amazing how our scriptures are speaking into this. We're preaching on the coronation of Rehoboam, Solomon's son, as king. And in the moment where the people from all of the 11 tribes that aren't Judah, right, come to him and say, hey, Solomon embodied a little Pharaoh, right? Can you chill out a bit? And he essentially said, after consulting his advisors and choosing the least wise to listen to, said, no, it's about me. It's not about you, right? And we wrangled with the power of our empathy versus the power of our ego, and how ego can draw these deep and widening divisions, but empathy, a willingness to not have our spirit sharpened against our neighbor, or our hearts hardened against somebody who just, comes to a different conclusion than we do, right? Can actually bring us together rather than pushing us farther apart. Where have you seen this at work in your churches, right? You named your church as one of the misfits in Stephenville, Texas. Where are you seeing this lived out? How is the all jokes aside about people not skipping out on church for a month, right? Where are you seeing this begin to bear fruit in your contexts?
I think it's just people having conversations, right? They've been able to talk to family and recognize the need maybe to heal a relationship with even, your close family.
No.
The ability to appreciate saying the hard things. A lot of people have come up and said, that was so brave that you preached on that, but you did it great, and not being able to, not being afraid to tackle hard subjects. I was like, well, we have to talk talk about, this is pretty standard Jesus teaching, like we have to talk about it. And so
it's the application that's tricky, right?
Yeah.
The teaching's the standard.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful that we will continue to see it. I don't know that we've seen it completely. Some of the practices that we've had over the course of the last month have been handing out candy at the Tarleton Homecoming Parade. And our kids were handing out purple candy. With cards with this and info about our church and how we loved them. You were loved. And I used that in a sermon the next Sunday. Our kids didn't ask who these college students were voting for. Didn't even ask them if they voted. Didn't ask them if they were Methodist. It didn't matter, right? They were just giving away candy to let people know they were loved. Yeah. Some spirit-driven thing that happened was our Stitch and Pray group came to me back in August. We've got this pattern for these little crochet hearts. Is there anything we can do with them? And I said, yes. In October, we're doing this campaign. And they were like, oh, that's great. We'll crochet a bunch. We'll just hide them around town. Connected to cards with info about this and with do unto others and info about the church and a cute little poem that they came up with that you could keep it if you needed it or you could pass it along. And so those got hidden all over town. Don't know what impact that's had, if they've all been found or not, because I don't know how many we hid. But I thought, what a neat little spirit-filled gift to have in our little community of love. And these women had sat down and hand crocheted all of these things. So my hope is that, and I told them on Sunday, this doesn't mean we get to stop being kind. It's going to be a continual conversation. So I hope the fruit continues to bear.
Amen.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
Joe, what have you seen take place in UP?
I actually write a weekly column, and I did 3 weeks on that quote of Wesley and how the second and the third one really are the tough parts, right? Because when we begin to speak ill of others, right, that leads to dehumanization, which leads to violence. Right, and then we sharpen our spirits. Then we do something with that. Yeah, and how that's the next piece we got to be thinking about post election whenever we find out those results. But I will tell you I've had several folks come up to me and say who are like political activists in their realms and say I just need this on repeat. I need this on repeat because they recognize it in themselves, like they are so entrenched that it is so easy to slip into those almost dehumanization pieces.
Yeah.
But I tell you, the first week, I saw the most wonderful thing. It was one of the great privileges of being a pastor. It was during communion, and our sanctuary is cruciform, and people were passing out the elements. And there's a person in our church who I had only ever met outside of the church. And she told me, I just can't come back into the church until, I don't know what our language barriers are, but until that language about our LGBTQIA sisters and brothers is gone. I just can't come back. And so the Sunday after, she showed up, and she was there. She's been there every single week. And she is on one far side of the political spectrum, and there's a gentleman who is on the other far side of the political spectrum who I have heard, had clashed. And as she'd finished taking communion, she sits down in the transept. He gets up from kneeling at the communion table and has to kind of walk by her. She stands up, sticks her hand out.
Wow.
They have a handshake, and then they hug.
Wow.
Fast forward to the next week. I see the gentleman and his spouse and this woman huddle together with their heads down. And so afterwards, I said to one of them, I was like, well, that seems like that was really interesting. Can you tell
What's
me
going on?
what happened?
Yeah.
And she said, yes. The woman said, came out to them and said, 2 of my yard signs were stolen. I know you guys walked past the house. Was it you? And they laughed and said, no, it wasn't us. And then the gentleman said, I guess we just need to pray that the people that took the signs are finding what they need. And then they, in the middle of the hall and God and everyone just started praying.
Wow.
And it was a stunning moment just to see these folks who are not going to change one another's minds. Right? But to find something common to be to be praying for and to be working around, to build and to heal those things. It was just so powerful. And so as I think of like what's coming, 50% of our nation is going to be in a real rough place, no matter what.
Yep.
And we've got a lot of work to do to continue to increase our proximity to one another, especially people who don't think like us, to increase our kindness. And so I agree. Like this is something that's Jesus puts no qualifiers on who our neighbor is. Yeah. Right. And whatever their conviction is. And that doesn't mean we have to compromise our convictions, but we still have to love them. Yeah. That's just the baseline of entry for the faith.
Yeah. The person matters more than their perspective.
Right. Yeah. And these are people and not positions. Yeah. And if we really believe in the Imago Dei, then it's required. And we're going to have a lot of, and I think as you said earlier, like if we can't do that in the church, we got work to do. But I think we're uniquely situated as United Methodists to be really important, to have an important role to play in that work. And so I agree, it doesn't stop here. We got to keep on going.
And do we truly believe that because my neighbor hurts, then I hurt?
Right.
And I think that's what the attitude that we need to have in the weeks ahead is knowing my neighbor is going to be hurting.
Right.
How do I care for them and not gloat over a victory?
Yes.
But realize we all want what's best for our country. Yeah. We do. We just believe differently in what that may look like. Right. But at the end, we're neighbors, and when you hurt, I hurt.
Yes.
So how can I increase my kindness to you even though we're opposite ends of the spectrum?
Absolutely. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I found this to be so meaningful as a pastor.
Yeah.
And in ways that have been even more rewarding and difficult than I expected. And it's such a tension, right? Between what is the prophetic responsibility and what is the community building responsibility, and how those really aren't binary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's good work.
Yeah.
It really is. Joe, I love the language you used earlier to describe your community as big table. Right, I describe my church as purple. Right, we're not blue, we're not red. We're kind of this mixed bag of folks who vote differently and think differently, and but have committed to see the image of God in each other and try to live in community in the midst of that. And it's a beautiful thing. And in a world where I think they do the polling work all the time. I haven't seen the most recent updates, but on what breaks your heart about our country today, right? Left and right, the thing they agree about is that they hate the division.
Yeah.
And like the harm and the trouble that is coming through this.
Yes.
And if the church can be an instrument of change, a shining example that the community can be different, that it doesn't have to be this way. I know there are a lot of Methodists in the world who don't really know what to do with evangelism, right? We're quicker to name how we don't want to do it than are to name how we could, right?
Yeah.
We know bullhorns are not our thing. We know, street corner preaching is not our thing, even though it was kind of Wesley's thing. But when we talk about telling our story and bearing witness to a hurting world, creating a table that's big enough for two people that are well known to be opposites and well known.
Sit on opposite sides of the church.
Sit on opposite sides of the church.
Yeah.
Where loving, caring, formative community is happening in the name of Jesus. That's a witness that I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And that's a witness that I think our world desperately needs and would reframe how people experience church. And as you said earlier, we as United Methodist Christians, I think, are uniquely positioned, right? Our quadrilateral doesn't help us in geometry class at all, but it helps us in this space, right?
Definitely.
That theological perspective that says we will hold tightly to the scriptures while also being informed by our experience, our tradition, and our reason, and bringing it together to bear really good witness.
Definitely.
We're kind of coming to the end of our 30 minutes, but I want to know if you've got like one final word for the person who's sitting and hearing this today. They're scrolling on their phone or they're on their computer, and today is just a day where the anxiety hamster wheel is spinning for them. What is one word that you want them to hear today?
Well, first, I just need to give credit to my district superintendent, Edlin Cowley, who just shifted my language for me to be a big table.
Okay.
Which I thought that was really powerful. It's so much more powerful than a big tent.
Yes.
Right? 'Cause a big
Yes.
tent, we can all go to our corners of the table. We got to look at each other, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's huge. And so I'm thankful to him for that. I think the first part is vote if you haven't.
Definitely.
2, turn off the TV for a while. Go stick your feet in the grass. Ground yourself.
Yes.
Politics do have real consequences, but ultimately they are temporal.
Yeah.
Right. And the kingdom of God is something much bigger and much more eternal than that. And we've been through worse storms than this.
Yeah.
It's just new for us.
Yeah.
And so have faith and go meet your neighbor.
Right. Amen. Amen.
Take them cookies.
Yes. Yes. A neighbor bring a pumpkin pie over yesterday. I was like, what is this?
That's it.
At the same time we've been doing this, we've been doing a Bible study on Revelation, which has been fascinating. But the words that continue to stick out kind of, and they echo one another, is that we have to persevere in the act of kindness. We have to persevere in our faithfulness to the call of Christ to love one another and to love God and to live that out every day. And if we do that, God has great promises for us as God's people when we reach the end of whatever our journey may be. I hope that people, go and vote, definitely, for sure. That's our responsibility and our privilege to be able to get to do that. Maybe go to bed and don't wait for the election results to be done. Get a good night's sleep, get some rest, and feel God's peace wash over you, knowing that you are taking the right steps to be kind to one another and to love one another, no matter where you are. But feel God's peace.
Amen. Amen. Marilyn, thank you so much for being here today. Joe, thank you so much. And
It's a pleasure.
Thank you to the communities of University Park and Stephenville for taking this mantle on to be ambassadors of good news in a time of felt struggle in our midst. And so please do go vote between here and there. You may catch Joe and his daughter at the polling place.
That's right.
So make sure you go vote. My wife took our 3-year-old with her when she went voting the other day, and they've adjusted their sticker game.
Oh.
Yes.
It used to be they'd give you the sticker that said "I voted,"
Yeah.
and apparently
Future.
that
Got, like,
caused anxiety that toddlers were voting in the worst parts of the internet.
So much trust.
So much
trust.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So now it says future
Future
voter.
voter.
Okay, very
And it's
good.
all good. We're beginning the patterns early.
Yep.
My word of wisdom for you, if you're at home right now and you're really struggling with number 2 or number 3 on Wesley's 3 rules, I know that there's somebody within your extended family system, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a grandparent, maybe it's an aunt, a cousin, an uncle, who you profoundly and deeply love. who has a very different position on this than you do, on whatever the presenting issue is that has you in knots. Every time you see somebody who disagrees with them, take their face away and insert the face of that person who you have claimed and called beloved without regard to their position. And maybe, just maybe, in that one small step, we might see each other as beloved children of God. Until next time, I'm Daniel Hawkins, and this has been Pod Strangely Warmed. This has been Pod Strangely Warmed. If you enjoyed our conversation today, know that you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. On Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, any and all the places, we are there. So if you want to continue the good United Methodist conversation that you've been a part of today, find us, like us, rate us, review us, and share with a friend so that the good news that is happening right here in our own midst can amplify even more.
And go, Lily.
I know.
These are so good.
She's amazing. That's awesome.
I have to figure out what prize to get them.
Right?
Buy them dinner.
Dinner with the pastor.
That's it. That's it. What everybody wants.
Exactly.